investigate claims of the paranormal, pseudoscience, fringe groups, and cults, and claims of all kinds between good science, junk science, bad science, voodoo science, pathological science, non-science, and plain old nonsense. And unless you've been abducted by aliens and been on Mars for the last few decades, you know there's a lot of it out there. Nonsense. That is, and some people call us debunkers, but let's face it, there's a lot of bunk that needs debunking. And that's our job. But we're also interested in why people believe these sorts of things. My first book was Why People Believe Weird Things, for example. And my latest book, The Believing Brain, is I'm really sort of pulling back and asking why people believe anything, full stop. Not just weird things, but anything at all. That is how belief systems are constructed. I thought, though, instead of giving you my canned public speech about the book, that I would back into it by first addressing some of the things that we've been talking about here today. I've just been taking notes on my smartphone here. That concern me because Deepak wants to have a dialogue, a serious conversation. So I'm glad that he invited Len and I, for example. By way of example, the Catholic Church has for centuries had a position, an actual official position, called the Advocatus Diabolus. This is the devil's advocate. And that's sort of my job here today, to play the devil's advocate on a lot of these claims and these points of discussion. That is to say, somebody's got to stand up and say, wait a minute, how do we know this is true, and what do you mean by this word and that word? For example, my position is that there is no such thing as mind. There's just brain, and we're using mind as a word to describe what the brain does. The problem is that mind is a fuzzy word that doesn't really explain anything. It's a little bit of a God of the gaps type argument that intelligent design creationists use, where scientists can't explain X, they fill in X with some other word that represents the mystery, and they end it saying, that's the explanation. So for example, by contrast, Joel Premack talked about dark energy and dark matter. He does not mean that as an explanation. I double-checked with him on the break. He just means that those are just linguistic placeholders until we understand what it is that's going on in the universe, what those things represent. For scientists, calling something a word, we have to use language, that's okay, but let's remember that those words don't actually represent anything until we get to the core of it, down to the bottom, till we actually find something that we can measure. So, once we know what is causing the universe to expand at an accelerating rate and so on, then we won't call it dark energy and dark matter anymore. We'll call it whatever it actually is. And mind is like that. There's no such thing as the paranormal or the supernatural. There's just the normal, the natural, and the stuff we can't explain yet. That's it. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of mysteries left to explain. So you've seen in the dialogues with Deepak and the various speakers, with the exception of Len, it's a little bit, reminded me a little bit of an attorney interviewing a friendly witness. The witness already knows what questions are going to be asked, and the attorney knows what the answers are going to be, and everybody's happy. The answer is yes, 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 and yes, and there's the conclusion. You'll notice that Len asked him what he meant by each of those words. That's the proper way to get down to what is exactly we're talking about here. So when we use words like mind, it gets fuzzy. Or mindfulness, consciousness, awareness, self-awareness, introspection. We can't help but use words. I know, we got to talk, but we have to remember when we say things like he remembered or she figured it out, this doesn't explain it. We're just talking. We're just using linguistic placeholders to fill in until we understand what it is. When we use metaphors like consciousness is like a television, or it's like a computer or a parallel processor, or you go back centuries, it's like a steam engine, or it's like an electromechanical machine, or it's like a digital computer. No, it isn't. It isn't like any of those things. We talk about it because we don't understand it yet, and we have to, the literal meaning of a metaphor is in Greek to move something from here to there. We have to call it something that's like this because we have to talk about it. But what happens is that the mind, just like nature abhors a vacuum, so does the mind. So we tend to reify these things as if they're real because we're not comfortable. It's cognitively dissonant to say, I just don't know. I don't know. Like Len said, I don't know. That's the right answer to most of these questions that Deepak asks. I don't know. I don't know, and you don't either. That was my definition, by the way, on the big theist. Are you an atheist or theist? And I saw a bumper sticker that said, militant agnostic. I don't know, and you don't either. Really, on most of these things, I'm a militant agnostic. But the problem that we have here in talking about these things is they get reified, but that is made real. Like we talk about IQ scores, and before you know it, we're talking about intelligence, as if that's a real thing that exists somewhere in there represented by that score. No, it isn't. It's just a score on a test. It isn't intelligence. We call it that, and all of a sudden it becomes reified in our minds because we don't like a vacuum. Does the universe exist without it? Would it exist without us? Yes, it would. Look, the long history of science tells us that the Copernican principle is correct. We're not special. We really aren't. We're just another species on a little planet amongst billions of planets and so forth. We're not special. We've always thought we're special. We're the center of everything. It surrounds us. It goes around us. We're the most important species. We are the creation, so on and so on. No, we're not. And this is sort of the last bastion, this sort of quantum consciousness, and if we didn't exist as the observer, the universe would exist, it wouldn't exist. No, I'm sorry. We're not that important. If you wiped out the Earth and there wasn't a single conscious being here or anywhere in the universe, the stars would continue to convert hydrogen into helium by the laws of nature. That's it. I'm sorry. It would go on without us. Well, thank you. I have 6 fans. Good. All right, I have to say something about the BAM backwards time experiment. No one's actually explained it because it would take me an hour to explain it. It's very complicated. It's a series of 9 different experiments. It's a massively complicated, statistically heavily laden paper that really, you have to have an expert to read it. Somebody that knows how these statistics are done. But in short, it's something like a subject sits in front of a screen, the screen is split. On one side of the screen, an image is going to pop up, and it's 50-50. It's randomly determined by a random number generator, which side of the screen, left or right. And the subject has to push a button on which side he thinks it's going to pop up on. And of course, the coin flip model would say he would do no better than 50-50, and of course, that's the case for most instances. Now, in this one of the 9 experiments in which images that were pornographic, they were erotic, were slightly statistically more likely to be predicted on which side it would be on 53%, by 3% only. Now, in a large sample size, you're going to get a bell curve of a variation. Maybe it's 51%, 49%, 52%, 48%. But if you crunch the numbers in just the right way, you can make 53% come out to be statistically significantly different than chance. Barely. Now, I have not heard of a single replication. I would like to see the published papers on this. I know one for sure, Richard Wiseman in England, in his lab, they have tried and tried and tried to replicate it, and they have not been able to replicate it, and they sent the results to the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, the most prestigious psych journal, and they rejected it, not because they wanted it to be true or not, or anything like that. It was because major journals don't publish replication studies because they're not cited as often. It's a kind of a built-in problem in science. So I've offered to publish it in Skeptic. Okay, so do we have to explain backwards time causality through quantum physics, and is it this quantum physics or that? Don't worry about it. There's probably nothing to explain. It's probably just a statistical artifact of a very complicated series of experiments, most of which were not statistically significant. All right, so I just dismiss it entirely and go until the evidence is fairly conclusive. The default position is that your claim is not true. This is called the null hypothesis. Everybody in science knows how this works. You think you have a cure for Alzheimer's, let's say. Our position at the FDA is, no, you don't. Until you show us the evidence, we're not going to allow you to bring a drug onto the market and sell it to desperate people who want a cure because you have no evidence. What's your evidence? This is true for all claims. You think there's a Bigfoot? Maybe. Maybe not. Show me the body. You think aliens are coming to Earth? Maybe. I think there's probably aliens out there. I don't think they've come here, but maybe they have. Show me the body. Next time you get abducted, grab one of those little widgets in the medical room there that they do the probes with and bring it back so I can see it. Otherwise, the default position is we have to be skeptical because most claims turn out not to be true. All right, so continuing. By the way, on Fermi's paradox, are we alone? Does the universe depend on us? No, the universe doesn't depend on it. It's too soon to tell. We've just begun searching for extraterrestrial intelligent signals. It's just too soon. The universe is so vast. The best answer is, I don't know. Let's just wait and see. And this is always the problem. We all have. I don't like saying I don't know either. It's nice to have an answer, but it's better to say I don't know. And by the way, I don't know does not mean Y is true. So, like one of the things we witnessed there when Deepak would ask a question, where are you located? Where are the laws of physics located? And if you don't know the answer, the implication is, therefore, this other theory is true. No, it doesn't mean that at all. If I can't explain where the eye is located, it doesn't mean anything. It just means I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot and I don't know. Maybe you do know, or maybe nobody knows. And that's okay. It's called the hard problem for a reason. It's really, really hard. But that doesn't mean there's a quantum spirit in the sky who cares about us and the universe cares about it. And if I really, really, really visualize a Ferrari, it's going to appear in my driveway without my having to pay for it. No, the universe doesn't care about us, whether there's quantum physics behind it or not. Okay, now, I think there's actually evidence for my claim that there's no such thing as mind, there's just brain. Here it is. You heard it in the first talk today, Alzheimer's. And by the way, this was a masterful presentation of how to talk about a scientific concept. Calling it tangles and plaques doesn't explain it. And so Rudy said, okay, the first observations by Dr. Alzheimer, he said, oh look, there's tangles and plaques. Okay, we have to understand what those actually represent. And so he bore down into the molecular level, looking for understanding causality so that we can find a cure. Right, okay, so good. That's how you do it. You talk about that. Now, I've witnessed this, probably most everybody has, since we're all getting older and so many more people are getting Alzheimer's now. But my stepmom went, and she had Alzheimer's, and I just saw her disappear in the course of several years. Everything got smaller. As her brain shrank and her neurons died and the tangles and plaques and all that, her handwriting got smaller, her gait got smaller, she hunched over, curled up in the bed, personality got smaller, memories got smaller, until it just disappeared. As her brain disappeared, her mind disappeared. There's no mind, it's just the function that the brain was doing. If you remove the brain, the mind is gone. No brain, no mind. It's just a word we're using to talk about brain function. So where is my stepmom's mind when her brain dies? Or, as I put it to Deepak before, where is Aunt Millie's mind when her brain dies? Stroke, dementia, and various other diseases. When the brain is dead, the mind is gone. Now, maybe you know where it is, and I'd like to know. Curious minds would like to know, as would many drug pharmaceutical companies, if they could pull it back by reconstructing the wire. But that's the point. See, now, Deepak talks about mindfulness and meditation and so on. Yes, of course, it's all great stuff. We know that that works for some things. In other words, like after a stroke, you can actually get back some of the function, but that doesn't refute what I'm saying. In fact, it reinforces what I'm saying, because what rehabilitation does is it rewires the brain. The wires have to be there. No wires, no function. That's it. You got to have the wires. Forget this hardware, software. That's just a bad metaphor. It isn't like hardware, software. It isn't. We just call it that because we really don't understand it. So we grasp onto things in our environment. Oh, it's like a Mac. No, it isn't. And so we just have to pull back and what do we really know? Not much. We have a long ways to go. So the I don't know answer is the probable question. Now, I didn't get a clock, so how much time do I have?
You're done.
I'm done.
Why don't you come and sit here for a second?
Did you want to be the
I want to ask you a couple of questions.
Advocatus diablos? Yes.
I just want to ask you a couple of questions. You said there's no mind, right?
I don't like the use of the word mind. There's just brain and what it does. Just leave it at that.
Right now, am I talking to you or
You're
to
talking
your
to my brain.
So when you say my brain, what do you mean by the word my?
It's this particular collection in this body. That's all it is. That's me.
Yeah, then you're already using dualistic language. Then.
Well, we can't help but use dualism. We're natural-born dualists. The fact is, almost everybody thinks there's body and mind and body and soul and all that. No, there isn't. We're mistaken. We are often mistaken about things we think are true and they turn out not to be.
Okay. Would you agree there's such a thing as neuroplasticity?
Yes, of course. But rewiring the brain through neuroplastic therapies is just rewiring the brain. You got to have the wires.
Yeah. But we're having a conversation right now, and people are listening to our conversation. As a result of this conversation, certain parts of their brain are activated, right?
Hopefully.
If it's an intellectual conversation, it's their cortex. If it's an emotional conversation, it's their limbic brain. If it's a fearful conversation, maybe it's their midbrain. So this mental exchange between us is actually causing certain networks to fire and certain networks not to fire. That requires certain genes to get activated and certain genes to be not expressed, because you can't lay proteins without gene expression.
And everything you just said supports exactly what I said. Thank you.
So our mental activity right now is changing both gene expression and neural networks.
Okay, careful. Mental activity. Neurons firing. Neural network patterns of firings. That's what we're talking about.
But we are the causative agent of that neuron firing.
Okay, what's the we? Again, it's a
we is
it's
consciousness.
Okay, careful. It's a series of neural network patternings. We use a word like consciousness to represent the whole thing in the experience, but slow down. The plaques and tangles, what are they exactly? They're that. What's the neural firing? It's dopamine going across the synaptic. That's all it is.
But by the choices I make, I can turn on dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, adrenaline, cortisol. There's a whole array of chemistry that I can actually choose to turn on and off.
Yes, but wait. One part of your brain can make decisions that affects another part of the brain. Or one part of your brain, see, even makes decisions. No, there's no decision making. It's one part of the brain is firing, triggering another part of the brain.
It's all happening by itself.
That's it.
And you have no choice in the process.
Well, I would agree with Len on this that...
it's an illusion.
It's an illusion, yes. But it's a good illusion. It's a useful fiction. And actually, I've solved the free will problem. I have free will and you don't. And you believe the same thing.
And that was already determined.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
That was determined.
Okay, but I think it's okay to think of it this way, that there's a causal net of the universe, and our choices that we make are within the causal net. So the universe is determined, and yet we still feel like we have to have free will.
Then who's the we that feels it?
Each of us individually.
Who's that individual?
It's the collection of neurons firing in sequence that represents yourself.
And
wherever that is located.
And you have no influence over those neurons.
I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe there's some part of my brain.
Who's saying I don't know?
This is the problem. I don't know.
Who's saying I don't know?
I don't know.
But who's the I that's saying I don't know?
I don't know.
Are your neural networks? Are your neural networks saying I don't know?
For sure, one of them is. But I don't know which one, because it isn't outside of my skull. It's all in the skull.
Are you mystified by your existence?
I am. And I often enjoy that mystification, especially over adult beverages. That helps me really focus.
Does that mystification make you feel a little less dogmatic?
Okay, it makes me feel somewhat in awe of the complexity of the universe.
Where is that awe? It's a neural network behavior?
I'm quite sure it's related to dopamine, because we know, and probably some of the ketamines. You know, ketamine drugs make you feel like you're floating and flying and on high. It's like that.
So that's all it is. Love is oxytocin and awe is ketamine.
But not just. Just? I mean, it's everything. This is fantastic that we can give somebody a shot of oxytocin through a nose spray, and they give twice as much money to a charity. This is fantastic. And they feel better about doing it. So it's brain chemistry. So what?
So you actually think molecules are real?
Oh yes, absolutely.
You don't think they're names given to patterns of behavior of the universe?
Of course they're names, Deepak, but they're
Who gave them the names?
Dr. Dopamine, no, I don't know. All right, I guess you're after the fact that there's a human label on these things, but these molecules would exist whether we existed or not.
Hey, a molecule, hydrogen and helium, are names given by human beings to patterns of behavior of the universe, and the human beings are also patterns of behavior of the universe.
I don't know what that means. Okay. So here's the problem. As we continue, Deepak's going to find some place where I'm just clueless, which is we're already there. And
Do you
as
believe...
if that implies this thing over here is
no,
true. No, it doesn't imply anything.
I'm not implying anything.
All right, okay.
You said, I could think a Ferrari into manifestation. I didn't imply that. You just used that to have a crack at people. So I'm not implying anything. I'm just asking you, do you think there's an ultimate reality?
Yes.
What is it?
See, that's like asking what was there before time? Okay. Is there an ultimate? Obviously, there's a reality. We're in it. And if we didn't exist, I'm quite sure that it would
reality is, that ultimate reality is what we perceive through the human nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like this. This isn't solid.
And that
yes,
human nervous system is not part of that ultimate reality. Is the human nervous system also a behavior of that ultimate reality?
Yeah, of course. What else?
So,
what else would it be?
So if we are aware, and you don't believe in the word awareness.
Well, it depends what you mean by awareness. Right? It's a little fuzzy. What do you mean by awareness? That part of our brain is aware of behavior? Yeah, of course. But most of, like Len's next book, Subliminal, most of what we do, we're not aware of. We're completely clueless about what we're doing.
Are you aware right now?
Well, part of me is aware of, like you. I can't hardly miss it.
Okay.
You're grilling me here, Deepak. You're grilling me.
As you're aware now, right?
Part of me is aware, a small part.
And part of me is aware. What's the big that you're not aware of?
Well, there are known knowns, and there are known unknowns, and there are unknown unknowns, the things we don't know that we don't know about, and that's where we're at, I think. And I don't know. I think we've hit an epistemological wall that we simply can't go beyond.
And the eye is just a network of neurons.
Probably. We don't know where it's located, but probably there's a series of neural networks that represents all the other neural networks, and it feels like.
But these neural networks, and you kind of poo-poo all this quantum physics in front of some of the pioneers of quantum physics.
I'm just saying let's not take it beyond.
Okay, but isn't the origin of this brain also from the same domain of nothingness where the whole universe comes from? Or are you postulating this as outside the universe?
No, there's no outside the universe.
Okay.
Right.
Are you a dualist or a non-dualist?
No, I'm a monist for sure.
A monist.
Monist, materialist, right. There's just one that's it.
And it's all stuff.
Well, energy. Yeah, it's all matter and energy. That's it. Okay, that's just there might be something more. I don't know. But until somebody really makes it clear that there's something else, like the dark energy, dark matter, obviously there's something else. Let's just call it that until we figure out what it is.
And who will figure that out?
Well, graduate students are a good place to start.
No, but not graduates. Their neural networks will figure it out, right?
Yeah, their brains, hopefully.
Their neural networks will figure it out.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's a form of animism, if there is one.
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. I just think it's...
You're being very animistic.
No,
You're ascribing consciousness to this. Huh? Actually, it's a good statement.
Well, wait a minute.
The neural network will figure it out.
What's that got to do with the table?
These physical molecules.
Yeah.
Physical molecules will figure it out.
Okay. These are really hard problems.
I know.
The fact that we don't have an answer to, it's fun to talk about, but let's just be careful that we don't extrapolate beyond.
What have we extracted? We have explored the mystery of our consciousness. What have we extrapolated today?
Well, okay. I think the implication from your work is that there is something beyond the brain, that mind exists somewhere separate from the wires, yes?
Every moment, as a human being, I ask myself, what's it all about? Okay? I have personal experience of insight, of intuition, of introspection, of creativity, of imagination, of choice. These are my personal experiences. And I'm not going to dismiss them as being produced by neural networks when I don't know how neural networks
But they're not
produce
dismissed.
this
It's
experience.
not dismissing it. Explaining the rainbow, unpacking the rainbow to explain it doesn't take away its beauty. The fact that
And beauty, what is beauty?
so the and
What is beauty?
it's an emotional feeling we have in response to something.
As a result
And
of...
emotions are designed by evolution as proxies for behavior to get us to do something.
And
And hormones are behind those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we
let me
get
ask
your
you,
position.
but I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Where is Aunt Millie's mind when her brain dies from Alzheimer's? Where is it?
Aunt Millie was an impermanent pattern of behavior of the universe. Aunt Millie returns to the potential from where she appeared. You right now have the illusion, in one sense I agree with you. Michael Shermer doesn't exist. Okay, Michael Shermer is a pattern of behavior of a unified wholeness. And Aunt Millie has disappeared into the potential from where she came.
But what's the medium that stores the potential?
The medium is non-local consciousness, a field of possibilities.
Okay, I hear you using those words.
A lot of people use those
yes,
words
I know,
today.
but stringing them
A
together.
lot of people use words
I
like
know, but-
potential and actual.
But see, you are implying that Aunt Millie actually continues on. No, she doesn't.
As pure consciousness, she does.
But what does that mean?
Listen, it means that
Her
there is no
memories?
such thing as
Okay,
a permanent
so-
identity. Are you right now the person you were when
Okay,
you were 2 years
so
old?
Aunt Millie's memory
But
of
what
her
happened to the
21st
2-year-old? What happened
Well-
to the adolescent?
Yeah, where is that in the potential? Where is that stored? In the non-local field?
It's
See,
stored as possibility. It's stored as possibility.
But what does that mean?
It means that it can actualize into actuality, form and actual, potential and actual. There's no such thing as actual without the potential for the actual.
Yes, but what's the medium that stores, say, the sequence of memories that was stored in a series of neurons firing? That's memory A, and now she's dead, or the
Hey,
neurons died.
I
Where did
just
it go?
asked one of the most significant neuroscientists in the country, at least by his credentials, where is cellular memory? And he said, I don't know.
Okay, so I don't know, and that's it. It means nothing more than I don't know. It doesn't mean Aunt Millie's mind is still out there somewhere. It doesn't mean anything. It just means we don't know.
But you said there's no mind to begin with.
Well, I'm just saying as the default position, we know there's a brain. We know there's a brain. We don't know that there's a mind that exists outside of the brain. Leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.